Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Student Rabbi Shmuel coming to you on Friday, Yom Hashishi, wishing you a Shabbat Shalom and looking at this week's Torah portion, which again is a double portion. Now, as you can see, I just got done doing my morning prayers, my davening, and I'm kind of arrayed in the things that we do, that we put on when we daven. Okay, so first we've got the talis with the tzitzis, and we're commanded to wear these tzitzits. Okay, and as you can see, we've got 4 of these. Technically, they're supposed to be a blue thread, techelet, which is from an animal, a sea animal that we can no longer identify. The translation of what it was has been lost in antiquity. Some people also think that animal no longer exists. But the knots on here, on each one of the 4 tassels on the corner, the tzitzit, there's supposed to be 613 rows and knots that correspond, of course, to the 613 commandments. So this is the talit, and in the morning we put it on. We say a little affirmation. Thank you for God, we are wrapping ourselves in the light of your life. And as you can see, too, we have the 2, they call phylacteries, or the tefillin. Tefillin is derived from the Hebrew word to pray, and we wear them in the morning. They contain Torah scrolls, 4 portions, 2 of which are from the Shema and the V'ahavta, and we wear those to be kind of holy, because we, from the heart, right, and the hand, the weak hand that we use for action, and of course the head, that we always be guided by wisdom and God's light. So first of all, a shout out, my 3 students that were in class yesterday. That would be Lily and Alexis and Ari. Thank you for coming. It was great having you in class. We had some pretty good discussions as always, and some good learning. So great having you. So again, these we double up in the portions again this week in order to make sure that we have completed our reading of the Torah scroll for Simchat Torah, which it's the last of the high holidays that come typically in September, October. And we're also on the way to Shavuot, counting the Omer, and Shavuot is the 7 weeks when Moses came down with the 10 Commandments. So let's point out a couple of items, a couple of points from from our 2 portions. Okay, so the first one is Behar on the mountain. And it talks about rest. Now, we've talked about the Shabbat. What is Shabbat? It is the 7th day of the week. It is rest. It is when God rested from creation. Does God need to rest? No, of course not. God is a spiritual being. He or she never runs out of energy. But he did it. God, Hashem, rested to show us that we need to rest, okay? Not just the physical rest from our work, from our daily work, but also so we can have no distractions and focus on our spiritual beings, okay? Now, that the cycle of 7 comes up a lot of times in our religion, in our spiritual guidance, right? So the 7th day, of course, is the Shabbat. The 7th week, again, Shavuot. 7 weeks we count down to when the Omer, the barley offering, when Moses, the countdown from when Moses brought the 10 Commandments down to us. The 7th month is actually the new year. We celebrate the new year. The month of Tishrei comes September, October, and actually the 7th month, which is really our spiritual year. And that's when we get in touch with our spiritual selves and make commitments to be better for the next year. The 7th year now, there's a 7th cycle of years. The 7th year is the sabbatical year. Okay, this is when, all right, so on the 7th day, who gets a rest? We do, but also our animals, our chayot, our beasts, all right, the beasts of burden, they get a rest as well. Now, on the 7th year, the land gets a rest. Okay, this is when the land gets to replenish itself, so we don't farm the land in the 7th year. Now, the question is, what if, we've still got the plants, and we've got the wheat, and we've got the trees, fruit's going to grow, grain's going to grow. What do we do with it? We let it fall. Can you harvest it? No. Can you take it? Yes. All right. But again, the land gets its rest. Now, the portion also talks about people who have a run of bad luck. Okay, so they've got their land, their ancestral land. When the Israelites went into the Promised Land, the Israelites, this offspring of Israel, who was Jacob, got different portions. They got different sections, different tribal sections of the land, but they also got family plots. Now, sometimes people get down on their luck. They have to sell their land. They get in such dire straits that they actually have to sell their land to somebody. And then sometimes they sell themselves into slavery, which is really more of an indentured servant. So you're going with someone who's of better means. You work for them for a period of 7 years or until the sabbatical year comes up. Okay, there's other meanings, there's other implications to that 7 years, because at that point, not only does the land go free, but also your debts are repaid. So you're not being able to make it on your own. So what do? You work for someone who has the means to pay you, and then after that term is up, you can go off. You've maybe made up some money so you can start working back your land, or you can get a job or do whatever, and you can go better toward prosperity. Okay. Now there's another cycle of 7 that we look at. Okay, it's 7 times 7, which is 49 years. 49 years passes, and in the 50th year, you have the Jubilee year, right? What happens in the 50th year? Now remember, somebody has been in dire straits and they've had to sell their land. Now, in essence, they're not really selling their land. What they're doing is they're borrowing off it, using it as collateral. Because in the 50th year, if somebody has been in such dire straits and they're not able to buy that land back, guess what? It reverts back to them anyway. And if that person is not alive, then it reverts back to their family, right? So the ancestral land goes back to their rightful owners. Okay, so just showing you that, yes, I am wearing a yarmulke here. I like the smaller ones with the nets. Okay, all right. So the ancestral land reverts back to its original owners, or the family or the clan that originally owned the land. Now think about what that does. All right, some people, yeah, and this is just God. This is just our actions, our karma, if you will. Some people are better off than others. It happens that way because of whatever. Right? We don't think about it. We don't dwell on it. We just do what we need to do to make a living. But some people have better situations than others, right? So what's the possibility that can happen? You can have people that are landowners, right? They constantly are buying up people's lands, and they're owning it and they're holding it, okay? And they eventually amass so much land, they might own the country, right? And this rule, this law, is to prevent that from happening, so that all the land is in the hands of only a few. Now, look at what's going on today. We have a class of billionaires, okay? You know, if you've made all that money, God bless you, good for you, enjoy it, do what you want with it, it's great. But if you've done it at the expense of others, you know, if you've maybe done something to the land or the environment, or you've used unfair means, or you've bought politicians, this law is to prevent that from happening, to make sure that the power, okay, when you've got economic power and you've got money, you've got political power, you can influence people, you can influence politicians. This law is to prevent that from happening, because everybody's equal in the eyes of God. The other thing too is that you're still bound by those laws. Okay, you still need to be humble before God, because the land is not really ours. It owns to God. God created it. He made it. We are here by His good graces. Okay, so we have to respect the land. The other part of it is that, you know, when somebody is in dire straits, you don't take advantage of them. Okay, what is the commandment says? You know, there's a commandment that says don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. That's not just a physical implication, it's also a metaphorical implication. You don't take advantage of somebody in a business dealing who has less means, or can't, or doesn't know what's going on. Okay, you've got to be fair. So basically, what else you're doing, love thy neighbor as thyself, help out thy brother. If the person is in dire straits, you help them out. If somebody has had to sell themselves into slavery to avoid starving to death, then it's on the obligation of the family to bail them out, you know, to do whatever they have to do to not just, you know, set them free, but also set them up so that they can now go back to earning a living for themselves. Okay, so the next portion, Bechukotai, okay, it's got some rewards and punishments. Now the rewards are about 9 verses. The punishments are about 40 verses. So if you do what you're supposed to do, observe the commandments, you're good to go. If you don't obey the commandments, then, you know, God's like, I'm going to do the same. You don't listen to me, I'm not going to listen to you. Measure for measure. It's not revenge. It's not vindication. It's just, well, you know, you're not going to uphold your end of the bargain. I'm not going to uphold mine. But with that stern warning, there is always the consideration that in the end, God's still there for us. When we repent, when we return, when we do engage in teshuvah, which means return to God and his laws, God will be there waiting for us. If you look at the prophets, the Nevi'im, there was Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel. People know them. They wrote the most. That's why they're considered major prophets. Not because they were better than the other prophets like Hosea and Zechariah and Micah, but just because they wrote a lot. In fact, Isaiah, some people think there was actually two Isaiahs. The great philosopher, the recent philosopher Martin Buber thinks there was maybe three Isaiahs. Okay, very, very stern warnings. Don't go to idolatry. Listen to the commandments, and this is what's going to happen. There's this rebuke, going on for, in Isaiah's case, like 58 verses, 58 chapters rather. But in the end, it's always, but you will find your way back. Okay? And in a sense, that's what we've done now. We've had our two temples, we've been in exile for 1,800 years, and now we've got our land back. Okay? A lot of Orthodox believe that, we're still in a sense of mourning. This whole period of counting the Omar for the 7 weeks is kind of a mourning because we don't have the synagogue, because a lot of people died during that time. But you know what? A lot of people say, hey, that point is over. We've got our land. We've got, our government. And we're coming back, and it'll happen. So let's celebrate. So with that, thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom. Hope you've had a great week. And since we've come to the end of the book, we cite the warrior's call, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek, strength, strength. May we always be strong. Thank you for listening. Shabbat Shalom. See you in services tomorrow. Congregation B'nai Chaim, the work's been done. We're ready. We were putting the chairs back yesterday. Come to services tomorrow. It will be a kid-friendly. We've got some yard sites we're doing. 9:45, Congregation B'nai Chaim. Shabbat Shalom and Lehitzvot. And may you have peace and blessing.